Hey everyone, I hope everyone's hunkered down in their homes and being safe. But I thought I'd check in with you all and talk with you about family files. Since we're an online class, you have a computer ready and you can maybe bored and ready to do something. So um, uh, I opened up the next week, Module 9, and I had opened up Module 8 prior to all of the spring breaks now that we've had. So I wanted to just kind of go over some things with families in addition to the lecture materials that are in here. So in the first customizing families, I had you make a basic table, and then you learn how to make a nested family array parameter, and then you're also picking out your study topic for the final project. And in this next module, we dive a little bit deeper and we start to edit some existing families that could have some improvements. Like there's an opening that you download and create an opening with adjustable shelf. And then we actually go in and start to fix some windows and doors that are already existing in Revit that we want to make improvements on. And this is a good place here too to use some of the windows and doors you could not find in in Revit when we were first setting up the Craftsman project, learning how to make that particular window or door type. But I wanted to kind of go back to the very beginning, and then you do get a chance to create your own custom family here. And really, family creation is one of the things that you do a lot in Revit. So if you end up deciding you want to make a few different families here, that's fine. I would dive in if you really are liking it and enjoy making families, and you'll find that it will pay off in the long run because it's good to know how to do this stuff. So what I wanted to do was back up a little bit and show you how to do some additional things besides what I had you do with a basic table, just covering some other tools that are in the family creation files. So the first thing I wanted to point out is how many RFT, these are Revit family templates, there are available. And these are things that you cannot make a new one. This is something that comes with the software. So you're limited to choosing at least one of these family templates to start with. We have annotation templates in a separate location. These are all for your, creating custom annotation family template files. Title blocks are their own category, and then the rest of them, these are all considered model families, and they are in template form. So first of all, I wanted to talk about the differences between. Notice we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different model, generic model family template files. The first one, which doesn't have anything following it, is a generic model that you can create that you can put anywhere in the model. It's not restricted, or it won't attach or be based off of anything. The rest of them you can see have some specifics that indicate how they're going to behave when you bring them into the model. So a generic model that's wall-based means that you have to have a wall created in your model before you can bring in this generic model. So let's think of something like a wall sconce. Might need to be a wall-based generic model, although I might put that into a lighting fixture instead. But it gives you an idea of something that might need to be wall-based that you want to just make a generic model of. You would pick that. And so each one of these has specific surfaces that they can be attached to. Now, this face-based is interesting because it means you can attach it to a floor, a wall, a ceiling, a roof, an angled surface, whatever is face-based. So while you're looking through these lists of all these different family templates, pay attention to the description of that template and see which is the best one for you to pick out for what you're trying to do. So with the table, I'm gonna just kind of expand on the table project here. So I'm gonna go into furniture and create my reference planes and set up the annotation dimensions between the reference planes. These are going to allow me to control that table later on, and then we can set them to specific dimensions. And then I know in my video I said it makes sense to name these reference planes so you can reference them later. These two reference planes that we start with are pinned, so I'm just going to define the table inside that space here as an extrusion. And the table itself is being locked to the reference planes, the tabletop, use those locks. And then the depth of the table we can look at by looking at it in a side view. So I need to go to a front view or something like that to see it. So that's what we have, a big block basically right now. So I need to create another reference plane for the height. And I am going to name that height. And we want to set a dimension on that. Oops. And I'll set a table height for now of let's do 2 feet. So this table top needs to be locked to that table height. And then I want to make sure I'm controlling the depth of it. So I'm going to create another reference plane. And we use that reference plane to control the table depth. So I'm going to set a dimension. And for now, if I want that dimension just to be, let's say 1.5 inches, and I don't want that to move, I can select that dimension and lock it. Now I can grab the bottom of my table and move it to that reference plane. But another way I maybe want to think about this is which reference plane is this table associated with. And if I go to edit work plane right now, it's just associated with reference level, which is the same as your floor level. I think I want to associate it with a new reference plane, and it should be able to be associated with the height. I might have to unlock it to do that. So if I select it and hit edit work plane and change this to the height, excuse me, then now that's kind of locked to that reference plane, and I just need to grab the other side and lock it to the lower reference plane that I've created that's 1.5 inches below. And what I want to do now is if I grab that height reference plane and I move it up and down, I want to see what happens to my table. Does that table top that I have there stay the same size? And it does. So that means I've got the table and the table thickness reference planes locked and set up correctly. So if I want to in the future be able to create a parameter, I'm going to be able to do that. Let's go back down to top view, and we'll create the table legs, and then I'll start to do some new stuff because I know a lot of this I covered in the class before. So I want to create, let's create some reference planes actually again first. Create some reference planes, and I want there to be a 2-inch offset from these lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I want there to be a 3-inch offset for the width of the table legs on the inside. So that's just a quick way to put in those reference planes. Now I can create through extrusion a rectangle or a square, if you will, that's locked to those reference planes. And then I can go to that front view and ensure that that table leg is aligned. I don't want to align it here with the bottom of the table. That's not good. I want to align it with the reference plane. And that's some of the things I wanted to talk about today, is how important it is to align things to very specific items. And so we're putting in those reference planes because we can have way more control over our family and better control over the family if you reference a plane rather than a geometry or edge of one of the other extruded parts. So in order to really make sure I'm attaching this to this plane, I am going to use align select the reference plane and select the top edge of that table leg and then lock it. So if I go back to my top view, I've got the table leg now. I know it's locked properly this way, but I do also have to lock the dimensions for all of these. So I'd create some annotated dimensions going between these two, and this way, and this way, and this way. And that covers it. If I lock all those, when I do decide to make this parametric, if I decide to change the width of the table, do you see how the table leg's going to go with it? And that's how I want it to behave. Okay, so we want to be careful to think about those things as we go and lock things down properly. So now with that one table leg, I'm going to mirror it to the other side. And then I'll take both of those table legs, holding on the control key, and mirror them to the other side. But I do have to take the time to edit each one. So I'm going to edit the boundary, the extrusion, and I've got to make sure that it's actually locked on all four sides. So this is the only way I know how to get that to lock and actually get those little locks to come up, is to reset the lines everywhere. So go back in, edit the next one, and make sure you're locking it. And if you forget to do this, you'll find out when you get into doing the parametric modeling part of it. You're going to find out pretty quickly when the table breaks because you start moving it or flexing it. It kind of doesn't do what you expect it to, and you realize you don't have it constrained properly. So even though I'm not making it parametric yet, I'm thinking about maybe making it parametric in the future. So I'm thinking about the best practices to use to make sure that that model comes out right. So let's look at this in the front view, and you guessed it, we're going to have to take all of those table legs that were not attached, and so I'm just going to pull them down. I'm going to pull the other one down from the other view so I make sure I get the one in the front and not the one that I've already attached. And then we can use a line and attach both table legs. I forgot to lock the other one. So I'll flip over into the right side view and get it that way. So we'll see which ones are, one isn't attached yet or hasn't been locked yet. We'll align that and lock it, because it will bark at me if I try to move it now. It's going to say, hey, you know, you can't, you've locked that. You can't move that without moving everything else. And let's go back over to maybe we'll do a 3D view so we can see it all in three directions here, and we'll see which one hasn't been locked yet. Now in this 3D view, if I want to see my reference planes, I can go, I just typed VV to get in here, and I can go into annotation category and turn on my reference planes and lines, automatic sketches and levels, and then that's going to bring those in. It should be bringing in those reference lines. Let's see if well, it still looks like I might have to go to another view to do that. But which one of these was not locked? That one's locked. This one's not locked right here. So let's keep that highlighted. So when I go into the front view, I can grab it, pull it down, and use align that reference plane to that leg, and things should now be working. So if I go back to that 3D view and I grab this tabletop, whoops, let's do it from a front view. Grab the top of the reference plane, rather, move it up and down. The tabletop goes with it, and it looks like all four rather legs go with it too. All right, now what I wanted to show you is how we can do some different things with the table having to do with the other tools that we have here. So we have revolve, sweep, blend, and I wanted to just show how we can add additional, features to this. So first of all, let's take the table leg itself. And I know we just spent a lot of time making it, but let's say we wanted the table leg to be tapered at a certain point. So I'm going to create a new reference plane from the front view, and I want the top half of the table legs to be square, and then I want them to be tapered. So I'm going to create a new plane. And I'll set the annotation dimension of that plane to some nice number. Let's maybe make it just 3 inches. I like that. And then from there down, I want it to be tapered. So I'm going to have to take those things and change the work plane. So you can either change the work plane, or you can edit the legs and have them attached to that upper reference plane. So here I want to align. So I'm making sure that I'm selecting the reference plane. Choose align. All right, and now the rest of the leg here, I want to create a tapered leg. So if we go to the 3D view, I want to create a tapered leg that is going to come down to a smaller square, if you will, at the lower end of the table leg, but stay aligned at this corner. So if we go to a reference level, I basically just need to create a few more reference planes. So there's never going to be a lack of reference planes in this using family. So let's go in 1 inch on either side. I want to create well, maybe I want it to be 2 inches. Let's make it 1.5. All right, so that does it. And then I want to create a blend. So a blend allows you to take two shapes, as you can see from the video. And those two shapes there, they're showing you in the example. One's a hexagon and one's a circle, and it's blending the two shapes. So you can get really complicated. But what I want to do is just take two squares and offset them and blend those. So it's whenever you're not, you don't have exactly the same shape in one side than the other, you can use a blend. So I'm going to use blend. And blend has two editing sketches, if you will. So the first one is we're editing the bottom of the table leg, because my choice here is to edit the top, meaning I can switch to editing the top. So that means we're editing the bottom. And I want the bottom of the table leg to be that's 1.5 inch size. So I'm going to do this in all 4 corners and lock them down as I go. All right, so then I'm going to go to edit top. Well, let's see what happened here. Oh, okay, that's right. I can't do all of them at once. I forgot about that. So let me hit escape, and I'm going to have to erase all but one, and then we'll just copy. All right, so then I go to edit top, and then I'm going to create a square the same size as the one that I have here. And I might have to adjust where that is in the reference planes, but for now, I'm good with just making it at 1 foot above. Okay, so when I hit lock them all down and hit OK, that's the second thing that we've edited. And then when we look at this in a 3D view, we have this little tapered leg here. So what I want to do now is lock that to that reference plane. So I'm going to go to the front view, and I'm going to use the align tool to select that reference plane and select the top edge of that tapered leg and lock it. So when you look at a 3D view now, we have a square portion of the leg here. And this makes it so you can put a skirt around, or apron rather, around the table. So people who like to are into building furniture understand that this is a much easier joinery to make. And then you start tapering the leg at a certain point below that so that that apron can be placed in as a flat piece instead of having to be a compound angle here on the inside. So there's the tapered leg. So now I just need to take that tapered leg and copy it or mirror it to the other corners. Let's go to that top view. And so I'll select the tapered leg, hit mirror. And in this scenario, I just need to make sure that this tapered leg is locked to the two levels, the bottom level and the top level, so that it doesn't move and change. So if I go to the front view and start moving the top edge of the table, right now what's happening is this part of it is stretching up and down. So I don't want that. I want the entire table to move. And the reason that's happening is this dimension is not locked. So let's lock that. Now if I grab this, I think only one of these table legs is actually going to stretch with the table. The others don't because they haven't been locked to that reference plane yet. So we're going to use a line, select the reference plane, select the top edge of the table leg and lock it, do it again, and then one more time. And now that everything's locked, I should be able to move it up and down and actually see the table move up and down along with it. Okay, so that's an example of some of the more sophisticated things you have here for creating more interest and more detail in the table. So I'm going to stop here because I don't want to make these videos too long. And when I come back, we'll try out some other things.